Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome to Planet Zoo. We're back here in Betaville Zoo as we carry on trying to sort of fix the problems of yesterday. So the wolves really did it in for us. They took a hell of a lot of money off us, and well, the chillers did really. It wasn't the wolves' fault. They can't help living somewhere cold, I guess, but we fixed that with the African wolves, but unfortunately it was too little too late and we were hemorrhaging cash. So the reason this is pretty much just a time-lapse today is because I spent most of my what would have been recording time trying to fix the problem. Cut down some staff, cut down a few other bits and bars, raised prices where I could, and also stuck in a few animals just to try and get those donations up. Thank you to everyone who pointed out in the last episode that the African dogs, the painted dogs that I put down, were both boys. So we wouldn't necessarily be having any puppies. I didn't really understand that, but I rang my mum and she gave me a special talk about birds and bees. So I've now gone in and given them a girl as well and sold one of the boys. So we may get some puppies there in the future. The big thing that really did me in, to be honest, was not just the chillers. It was the fact that I took out a loan, took out a pretty hefty loan. I took out the 75 grand loan thinking, I'll just take the loan, just give me some money. I don't really mind that I'm hemorrhaging cash. I just want to build some fun stuff for videos. Problem is that the repayments of that loan were massive, even dragging them right down to the bottom. It meant that we were paying back around about $6,000 or $7,000 a month when we were taking in around about 2 or 3. And basically I watched that loan disappear over the space of a couple of in-game months, which, as we've talked about, isn't particularly long. So kids, listen to your Uncle Jonty, don't borrow beyond your means. It's not good for you. I eventually paid it back, basically nursed the zoo while it happened. I had absolutely no money. One of the big problems was, one of the animals I'm going to put in here in a moment is Warthogs. I only put down a small drinking water bowl. I didn't really think much of it until I didn't have enough money to buy a big one, especially when they started popping out babies like they do. This was recorded, this first pass at least was recorded before the beta update we had that addressed the birthing rate issue. So we had about 6 or 7 warthogs at once popping out, and it meant they never had any water because there was only a small water bowl, and I had absolutely no money. I was negative 50,000 or something to buy a bigger one, so I was literally having to click it. Every time one of them drank from it, it emptied. Click it and request a keeper, and basically had to sit there for about an hour just doing that until either they grew up and I could sell them, or we made enough money to turn a profit and actually put in a better bowl. So tip for the future, there is a water trough available that has a pipe on it. It looks like an old cast iron underground well pipe that you sort of lever. You can see it there on the right, just on the selection there at the top right one. I assumed that was just for looks. I didn't actually realise that pipe is actually plumbed in. I mean, obviously you don't see any of the pipe work or anything, but it means there's a constant supply of water in those little things, just like there would be if you place down terrain water, you know, place down a lake. So those things are loads better because it's not much more expensive. I think there might be a slight upkeep cost, but it's incredibly marginal. But it's one thing that your keepers don't have to do, and the less time that keepers are wandering around your exhibits, the more time they can go off and, well, wander around other people's exhibits. So that's my tip, is if you're going to take a loan, take a small loan as you can manage, and because the repayments will come down a lot less. And yeah, live within your means. So the update then, big update, lots of fixes, mostly the food enrichment bug has gone now, I believe. So before, if you had any food enrichment items in there, there was a chances that your keepers wouldn't fill up the regular food because of those. So that's been fixed. And birth rates was the other big one. So again, I've talked about this before, but basically there is a chance of having a number of animals in a litter, and it's probably from like 1 up to something ridiculous like 10 or 11. And obviously, you know, it probably works on a bell curve. For the most part, they're going to have 1, 2 or 3, and then there's a long tail down for the really rare chance of them having sort of 5, 6, 7 or 8 babies. For some reason, they were always having the maximum possible they could, and in some cases, with things like monitor lizards, for instance, they were knocking out 9, 10 at a time. So although you don't see it on this time lapse here, we've actually built a monitor lizard nursery around the back of these exhibits here. Very serviceable building. It's literally literally just a big box that has some water and the correct training, and basically I'm just throwing the monitor lizard babies into there until they grow up, and then sticking them on the workshop, on the trade center. Talking of which, we've also now been told that we're going to have an offline version of this mode coming in the full release. I did a whole separate video about that, so maybe want to check that one out if that's the sort of thing that interests you. Basically, it's the exact same as this, but you haven't got to worry about other people, and personally I think that's a great idea. So yeah, we're putting down ostriches and warthogs, and they are both incredibly serviceable. I needed to get these in to get some donations coming in, okay? So they don't look very impressive, and they continue to not look very impressive until about halfway through this video. The ostrich one I've completely left like that. It's literally just a metal cage with 2 ostriches in it and everything, the bare minimum they need to be relatively happy. The warthogs, they're adorable, especially the baby warthogs. So I actually go back halfway through this video, but what is actually about 2 or 3 hours later in gameplay wise, I actually go back and fancy up the warthog exhibit a little bit, because they're probably going to stay, but the ostrich one I'm not too sure about yet. I think if I'm going to keep ostriches, I would rather have them mingling within a savannah with a range of animals that are happy to have them. I know that ostriches work really well with things like rhinos, for instance, zebras, that kind of thing. So I think eventually, if we get that far within the beta, you know, we're pushing into our first week already, and there's only 2 weeks of it if they don't extend it. So we may not even get that far, but yeah, I didn't want to spend a lot of time fancying up the ostrich exhibit, because chances are it's going to get ripped out for something else soon anyway. This is a time lapse. A lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, a few people who are new to the Planet series are sort of questioning time lapses. It's pretty much how you have to do stuff as far as YouTube's concerned, because just stuff takes so long to do, and I'm sure if you are playing the beta, you're starting to get an idea about that. It made me laugh. Best in Slot, a really awesome YouTuber, played a lot of Jurassic World Evolution and has come over to Planet Zoo, but didn't play Planet Coaster, so all this kind of extreme creativity abilities is all new to him, and he was saying how that this thing he'd made had took him 6 hours, and I was like, yep, that's how it works. You'll spend 6 hours on something and it'll give you a 10-minute video. That's just kind of how this goes. You'll see here I'm throwing down a workshop item, a blueprint. Shock horror. I think it's one of the first times I've ever done it. Oh, these stores actually are blueprints behind us. Again, I just need to get them down to earn some money. They're both going. Or actually, no, one of them's going. The warthog habitat, we're going to do that ourselves. But the shop blueprints actually keep and extend from, because I actually quite like it. It's got that nice sort of modern, serviceable yet slightly detailed look about it. I think it's actually quite fun. So here then, you'll notice all the money change probably. This is a huge jump. So we've gone from having, I think we had something like 30,000. We paid off the loan eventually, and then we built back up to 44,000 we've got now or something. So, and we're turning a profit as well. We're taking about a couple of grand a month. So we'll be able to carry on from here and build a nice exhibit next, which is going to be lemurs. I want to have a go at doing a walking exhibit that guests can actually walk through, and I want to have a go at the climbing mechanics as well. Obviously we can use pieces that are climbable, that primates, monkeys, all different kind of things can crawl around on, and one of the ones we've got in the game currently are lemurs. They can crawl around on them as well. So I'm going to put them in. There's a really great walk through lemur exhibit in. Where's that walk through lemur exhibit we went to? Is there? No, I wasn't thinking of that one. I don't think. Longleat was the one I was thinking of, yeah. So we've done 2. Welsh, if you can't hear my wife in the background there, the Welsh Mountain Zoo and Longleat, and it's one of the great sort of walkthrough exhibits, because they're really interactive. They come running around and jumping all around you and stuff. So really excited to see that. Lots of new mechanics that we haven't really seen in the beta yet, or I haven't seen. I'm sure other people have messed with it. But I haven't. So here we're building a warthog exhibit. I wanted to do something a bit different. One of the key things I'll say, if you really want some advice, a lot of people are asking me about sort of building in this game. I did do a tutorial that was more sort of the foundations, you know, actually sort of physically how you do things, what buttons you press. But as far as the theory goes, if you're looking for a bit more sort of theory about making stuff just look good, my biggest suggestion will be get away from boxes. Get away from just building a box. So if you can build something that's round, build something that's round. If you can build a building that's an L shape, or that has 2 slight variations in the height of the roof, roof, that kind of thing. All of that makes stuff just look a lot more interesting to the eye. Height variation especially is a big one. If you can build something with height variation, that's really good. So you'll see here, for instance, we've got that wooden slat around the back of the exhibit, but I only place it on 2 sides and then keep one of them open and then one of them completely open where the warthogs can obviously walk into it. And just that slight height variation as you work around the circle makes a big difference. I found these pieces, they're really good as part of the Indian set, just to sort of cap that top off, and you'll see where you get rid of that and move this in. Now this is a little smaller and it's not quite enough for them. I think it puts them at something like 48% or something. You'll see it there. I couldn't see because it's quick and it's small on Premiere Pro's screen. So we add a little sort of annex onto it as well. The reason I wanted to kind of try this sort of modern African architecture, which is kind of what I'm going for here, if it wasn't obvious, probably wasn't, was I found this curved roof piece. It's gorgeous, just like this one single piece that has, it's all built together, which is a little unfortunate because it'd be nice to have it in pieces, but this curved roof with a window around the edge, and I thought, you know what, that'll look really good somewhere, and I wanted something that I could use that, or at least work from that. So when I needed a little bit more roofing, excuse me, in this, I thought this is a perfect piece to kind of add this little extra bit on, and it's just a way that if somebody's kind of hanging out in here, a warthog that is, other warthogs can sort of wander off to the other side, or if all the babies are hanging out in the big area, you know, Dad can come and chill out over here instead, or, you know, Dad can look after the babies while Mum does it. I don't know. I just wanted this the idea of this sort of separate area. I think actually works really quite well, and that doesn't give them 100%, but it puts it into the green. I think it puts them into sort of like 80% or something, and that, for me, to be honest, is good enough. There's going to be a group of people who play this game whose sole aim in the game is to get every animal to 100% welfare. And I would argue that as good as zoos are, and as much good as they do, there's probably no animal in a zoo that has 100% welfare because they're in a zoo as opposed to being in their natural climate. So I'm quite happy for them to be content, if not ecstatic. So here's a building. I was going to delete that little building with the 2 stores in it, and I thought, no, do you know what? It's fine. Instead of deleting it, let's use it as a basis for building the rest of this space. And basically, I was just trying to fill this sort of green space. One thing you'll find that you'll get a lot in Planet Zoo, because it happens in Planet Coaster, is you end up with these little green triangles, I call them, these little sort of areas and spaces where paths meet that aren't big enough for an animal, or aren't big enough for a store, maybe. In some cases, I mean, this one obviously is, but in some cases not even big enough for a store, and you have to kind of do stuff with them. So you can often sort of fill them out with buildings, or you can fill them out with planters. You'll see just there, actually, on the path, you can see some planters that are placed in. Oh, also, you can see the entrance to the underground viewing section for the painted dogs. I've actually finished doing that now. There's a whole font in the game, which is pretty cool. It's a little cartoony, to be honest with you, but the problem is with fonts is fonts say a lot, and you know, if you go for something too formal, people might complain that they want something cartoony. If it's goes something cartoony and light and fun, then it doesn't look great when you're trying to do something a bit more formal. So without adding a dozen fonts into the game, I don't think Frontier's ever going to win. But the one they put in is good. It's plain at least, but it has got a little bit of a cartoony feel to it. Yeah, we use that for the painted dog entrance. I'll show that in a moment. After this time lapse, we will just jump into the game real time a little bit. We're not going to do any more building, but I just wanted to kind of show you around what we've done and introduce you to the Warthogs. And I'll show you the monitor lizard nursery as well, because that's not in this video either. Here I'm just sort of covering up this thing, and again, here's another great example of sort of tiering your builds and sort of adding variation. So rather than that building, because that's quite blocky, even though there's an inlet into it there, and there's sort of like a T shape or an L shape, it's still a little bit blocky, and there's still quite a lot of big blank walls, and you've got to get away from that. You've got to remove that big blank walls. So here I remember seeing some wisteria that I fell in love with as soon as I saw it. It's gorgeous. So I wanted to get loads of wisteria up this wall and then along this trellis here, and again, angles, variations in height, variations in sort of fullness, I guess, for want of a better word, really sort of make buildings look natural and realistic. So we can place some hanging wisteria there, and then we've got these awesome sort of filler pieces just to kind of fill in for both on top of the trellis and then also on that back wall over there. I think foliage, to be honest with you, they've absolutely knocked out of the park in this game. Now, obviously, foliage is much more of an important thing in a zoo than it is in a theme park. Obviously, it's integral to animals, but also zoos have a very sort of natural feel, which is often carried over through foliage. So I think it's really important to get a nice selection of it and do it well. And they really have. Credit to Frontier, credit to their artists. They've done a really fantastic job of the foliage in this game. And there's a really tiny green triangle. They're really quite tricky to fill in. I ended up just covering it up with an upside down window, which you'll see in a moment. So again, planters, things like that. But there, obviously, that's really should be just sort of painted in. Somebody suggested on the pathing tutorial actually that a terrain paint that matched the path would be fantastic. Oh, there you go. Brief look at the monitor lizards. Let's jump into a live bit and show you it properly. So they're just down here on the right. It's a bit all open. This is still very much a work in progress. I'm not really sure what to do with this side of the park, to be honest with you. But here we go. We've got a very serviceable. These corrugated fences get so dirty and broken really quick, or at least you can really see that they're dirty and broken, maybe more so than others. I'm not sure. I know these are a little bit as well, look. Yeah, maybe it's just more noticeable with these. That could maybe be toned down a little bit. Or we could just, get them fixed. But through here, we basically got I mean, it's gross, really, but it's meant to be sort of really backstage. We've even got, like, windows of the staff rooms out to look at them. But here we've just got hundreds of little buggers, look, just hanging out. We've got a big square pond. I just wanted it to be really... it's not going to be here long, but I wanted it to be... That's a big pile of poo to come out of one of them things, isn't it? My word, it's also floating. Good. So, yeah, they're all there, and as soon as they grow up, I normally find out because they start kicking off on each other. But I just get them in there and then flog them off. I've got about another dozen sat in the trade centre as well. But let's look at the nice, shiny customer-facing bit. Again, we've got this big... There you go. There's a great example of a green triangle, look, that we need to do something about. We come down here now to around this new area. I found these, look, don't feed the animal signs, but it looks to me like I'd love a no climbing one, and it kind of fits that. I mean, it's not right, but, at a glance, it's good enough. So no climbing up there, because you could drop right into the tortoise bit if you weren't careful. So, oh yeah, this fence is looking ropey. Maybe we need a new mechanic. So here we go. Warthogs. Done a little bit of changes since the video, I think, just mostly rock work and stuff. Put rocks in, man. They're awesome. The animals don't have a limit for them. You can put as many rocks as you like in. They just class as scenery items. Here's a better shot of that wisteria, isn't it? Gorgeous. As we come under here into the restroom, some leopards on the wall there, and just again trying to fill in these little spots here. We've got some staff fence in here. I placed this in to make it look like a gate. They just clip through, but it kind of gives it a bit of an impression there. And also we're getting these. I love these. I kind of wish there was a few different types. It just seems like there's only one. And also one thing I would really love is these billboards here. I wish they had a few more images, or even the ability to take your own image maybe, because there's a few places where I'd like to have a few of them. For instance, down here, it seems like the sort of place they would have two, and there's only the one image, unfortunately. So even half a dozen, I think, would be more than enough for each animal, and that, not a massive task, I wouldn't have thought. Right, anyway, around here then, I'll show you the painted dogs entrance. So here we go. I've got found these cool sort of footprints there, and sort of try to sort of colour them similar kind of colours. Like I say, it's a slightly cartoony font, but otherwise I think that looks pretty cool. And then as we go down here, I've just kind of put these logs in. Very rarely are we going to see this place, so I didn't want to spend an absolute fortune on it. But then we come down here and we can get a better view of the painted dogs. So next step then is a new animal. Like I say, we're going to have a go at a lemur exhibit, and I'm thinking over here, maybe this is how we lose ostriches, unfortunately, and instead we make a lemur exhibit, although I don't really necessarily want something that's going to be such high traffic and a big ticket item right next to our lizard jail. But maybe that'd be a good sort of design query to try and figure out how to cover that up a little bit, maybe with some foliage and stuff. That might be a fun idea, or if not, maybe over here. And then the other thing I really want to try and get done in the beta is a reptile house. A lot of people have been asking for it. I think that's going to come over here because we've got a bit of a habit at the moment of building over this way, and it means this is really empty. And it'd be nice to try and get some of the traffic away from these sort of busy areas. You can see how busy it is compared to up here where there's nothing. So I'm thinking maybe a reptile house could fit over here and work quite well. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy it's come on. Unfortunately, the wolves didn't work out for us. Oh, I have done some more sort of foliage and stuff in here. One thing I did was take all the rocks out, and I've replaced these ones here because I had to. They're making part of the exhibit barrier. How many people over here is there looking at the dogs? It's interesting. But I need to go back through and replace all the rocks that were in the exhibit with African rocks, so I'll do that off camera as well. But otherwise, yeah, I'm really happy with how this building turned out. I think it looks really good. Serviceable, yet architecturally interesting, I suppose. Which pretty much is zoos down to a T. So I think that actually works out pretty nice. I love all the action shots of litter going into the trash we've got. I'm pretty sure it was over here as well. There was some going in. Yeah, look at that. What are the chances? There's some more coming in as well. Look, let's see it. Boom. They're all fantastic shots, aren't they? There we go. Awesome. Right, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Till then, be good.